Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of grade 9. Today it's time for our final revision for the A level, and I'm going to focus only on the two questions that, or the two branches that are not giving the model answer in your worksheets. The worksheets were already uploaded on the class dojo, so I'm only going to revise the story and the poetry, some main points in both these branches. To begin with, the questions are going on a specific sequence. It's the sequence of the chapters that you have, chapter 6 to 10. So the first question that we have is about describing the scene when the Marquis hit the little boy and smashed him under his wheels. The question says that what happened while the Marquis was traveling in his carriage. The location is Saint Antoine Street, where the shop of Monsieur Defarge is right there. So exactly what happened is that the first thing is how people reacted. So the people were going everywhere. They're going by the side of the road in order to give way to the car or to the carriage to move. Also, the most important or dominant event is that he smashed a little boy or drove over a little boy and he killed him. People started screaming while the Marquis did not give any care to the kid, but he cared for the horses and for the carriage. Next is what was the Marquis's reaction. Now we have to give details about how he reacted. The first thing, the Marquis started blaming people for not giving so much care to their kids in the streets. Next, he started to pay no attention to the little kid who was just killed, and he started asking about the state of his horses as well as his carriage. The following question is the situation as a whole, the situation of killing a little boy in such a brutal way. What does the situation symbolize? The situation, of course, definitely symbolizes that there is injustice in the society of France. The Marquis thought that poor people are so unavailable to be to be killed anytime and without any kind of punishment. So this symbolizes, or the situation symbolizes the injustice that France lived in during this time. I will try to roll quickly to another chapter, and I will start talking about Dr. Manette's life. Dr. Manette's life now is more stable than before. If we are interested to know about Charles Darnay's life after leaving France forever, he settled down in England and in London, of course, and he worked as a French teacher. He was so many popular, by the way, among his students. He paid a visit to Dr. Manette's house from now and then, and we all know that was because he wanted to see Lucy. As Dr. Manette's state at this time, it was very much stable. He worked as a doctor. He started getting paid by the people to whom he gave a medical advice. So everything now for him was in the past. So I'm talking about the days that he spent in the Bastille. I think you can say that he stopped thinking about them. He got a full memory and he knows he knew what he was doing. The next is here when Charles Darnay proposed for Lucy. There was a long conversation between Dr. Manette as well as Charles Darnay about many things. One of them was that each one of them gave the other a promise. Charles Darnay, first of all, after proposing, he promised Dr. Manette that he's not going to take Lucy away from him, and that after getting married, if Lucy accepted him, they would live with him in the house. That's the first promise. The promise from Dr. Manette was that he was not going to speak negatively about him in front of Lucy if she accepted him as a husband. The other promise was made by Charles Downie when he promised to tell Dr. Manette all about his name, the secret about his name on the wedding morning. So Dr. Manette didn't want to know. He was the one who rejected or refused or stopped Charles Downie from telling him his name. If we focused on that, we would talk about Dr. Manette's feeling that Charles Downie, only by appearance and facial expressions and facial features, that he belonged to the Evermont family. So he didn't want to make sure of that unless he was absolutely sure that his decision of accepting him as a husband to his daughter is not going to be changed any longer. I will move quickly to that part. It's about Monsieur and Madame Defarge and their philosophy of revenge. We all know that Monsieur and Madame Defarge lived only for revenge. The only thought that they had in their mind is to avenge for the poor people and whatever was happening to them at that time, being killed, being hanged, and among them, طبعا, of course, was Gaspard, who killed the Marquise, and we all knew that from the first term. Anyway, Monsieur Defarge wanted very much to get to the revenge point. So he was thinking about that time, and he thought that it was too long, according to the time, it's too long to wait for the revenge any longer. And he thought that he wouldn't be alive to get to this point. But the lady, Madame Defarge, had a specific idea to show him that patience is a must here. Revenge, they will get to that point as long as they can wait, no matter how long can they wait. But the idea here is that she told him, she made like a resemblance between revenge and earthquake. And she told him that earthquake takes a long time to prepare, but when it appears all of a sudden. The same is the revolution. It needs time to be prepared, but when it appears, it's going to appear all of a sudden. Now we are going to talk about Barsad. You remember Barsad? We had this character from the very beginning in the first term. We knew that Barsad basically worked for the Marquise. Now the Marquise now is gone. So what is he really doing now? He's still spying. He's spying against, definitely, the poor people. So that day, he paid a visit to Monsieur Defarge's wine shop. Why exactly did he go there? He was not that poor to go to such a shop in Saint-Antoine. But as a matter of fact, he went there in order to investigate whether the people in Saint-Antoine protest or were protesting against or have any hard feelings towards what happened to Gaspard, being hanged for so many days until his body was rotten. That was very difficult. So he wanted to find out if people were talking about it, or were protesting against that, or were against that in general. He started to ask Madame and Monsieur Defarge indirectly about things, but they were very much aware of what he was doing. So the question about him now is, what did the spy Barsad tell Defarge about Dr. Manette and Lucy? Of course, because he was very much familiar with who Monsieur Defarge was, he wanted to provoke his emotions against Dr. Manette. So the only bad news that he had is that he told him about Lucy and Charles Downie. What was the news? That Lucy, the daughter of Dr. Manette, whom Defarge saw as a hero, was just about to get married to the nephew of the Marquise. two contradicting ideas. Dr. Manette, Charles Darnay. One, Dr. Manette was the one who supported all the way along the poor people and their suffering in France. Charles Darnay, the one who belonged to the Evermond family, and he was the nephew of the Marquise. How could this happen? This is what Monsieur Deforge thought about, and he was surprised that he, for a minute, he didn't know what to say, and he didn't want to show any feelings to Barsad. So the question is, that was the news. So it was about the news about Lucy getting married to Charles Darnay, one of the Evermond family. The question next is, why was Dr. Manette's face pale on the wedding day? This is very much familiar to most of us because it's that day on which Charles Darnay told him everything about his real name, his family, the past of the Evermond family, and Dr. Manette, of course, in the first place, he knew everything about the family, and he had his own past with the family that kept him imprisoned in the Bastille for 18 days. So let's say that this event, which is knowing everything about, or knowing the secret about Charles Darnay's family name and all this stuff, made him a little bit confused after that, and he went back. This is the only point when he went back to memory loss, and he thought for a long while that he was still in the Bastille. That was one effect of knowing the news. So he was pale because he knew everything about Charles Darnay's past, real name, family, and all about the Marquise. Right here, we're dealing with what was Mr. Lowry's decision about the workbench and the shoemaking tools of Dr. Manette. How did Dr. Manette agree? At the beginning, we have to focus on Mr. Lowry being a good friend, because we have a theme of friendship here. Mr. Lowry was a good friend because of so many actions he did with Dr. Manette. First of all, he refused leaving him while Lucy was away spending her honeymoon. Number two, he left his work and he stayed at Dr. Manette's house in order to put an eye, or just like watch what he was about to do for the next few days, and his state was absolutely unstable. He forgot everything. He forgot where he was. So this is one thing. The other thing is that he thought, along with Miss Pross, that the shoemaking tools needed to be not there anymore, because he didn't want Dr. Manette to have anything that would make him remember his bad days at the Bastille. So if we're answering this question, we would say that he decided to take away or get rid of the workbench and the shoemaking tools in order not to give Dr. Manette any chance to remember his bad days at the Bastille or anything that connected him to the Bastille one day. And Dr. Manette, of course, agreed on one condition, that he would be outside the house. He did not want to see the best thing that he ever had in the Bastille to be destroyed. Next is when we talk about why was Mr. Lowry worried about the Manettes that night he visited Lucy. Absolutely, that night Mr. Lowry spent the day having some suspicious events in the bank. There were so many French people who put their money in the bank, or they at least started transforming their money or transmitting their money from France to England. At this time, Mr. Lowry thought that something wrong was about to happen in France. That's why he was worried about the Manettes. The Manettes belonged to, or they were basically French people. and the revolution must some way or another be connected to them. So he was worried for so many reasons. The first one is that so many French people used to transmit money from France to England or to London, especially in the Tellson's Bank. The second is that the Manats belonged to were French, and he thought that something wrong would happen in France and that would affect them. That's why he was a little bit worried about them. Now if we took this question, for example, what role did Monsieur and Madame Defarge play during the storming of the Bastille? The storming of the Bastille refers to the revolution. So this word, the storm, does not mean something concerning the weather, but it refers to the revolution in France. Their rule, of course, it was a basic and a dominant rule. Monsieur Defarge was the one who guided people or directed people where to go. So in brief, if we are talking about the rule of Monsieur and Madame Defarge, that we can say that their role was dominant. Monsieur Defarge started directing people or telling people where to go, plus he supported them with guns, knives, and every type of weapon that could help them kill the soldiers and defend themselves. As for Madame Defarge, she was the one who guided the ladies or the women for the French Revolution. And of course, women started screaming in order to provoke people's emotion to move forward and stuff like that. We can move on to that part, اللي هو comment. As for the comment, the most important thing, يعني هو basically whatever you are giving the answer, whether answer or the comment, you have to make sure that your answers are full. Don't give short answers. Try to give any detail that you can, as long as you are giving me good structure. And by the way, don't say that once they see I'm writing English, they will give me the mark. Some of the examiners really read what you write, so be careful with that and try to give it a shoulder. The next part here, I'm going to talk about drive him to his grave, this from Jack. Absolutely, this was not said by anyone, but it was written. If we remember the person who sneaked into the Marquise's house, Gaspard, who was hanged later on in the events, this was written on a message and left in the Marquise's room after the Marquise was killed. So again, this drive him to his grave. This from Jack's. It was not said by anyone, but it was written by the person who killed the Marquise, Gaspard, and it was left in the Marquise's room after his death. Now, well, if the girl does not have enough sense to see what is best for her, it's a good thing that I did not go ahead with the offer. Of course, the only one who had a bad offer was Mr. Stryver. What was his offer really? His offer was to propose Lucy. He wanted to marry her. So actually the words does not sound like he was angry for being refused. Lucy didn't accept him as a husband. So that's why he was so arrogant to think that Lucy was stupid not to accept him as a husband. And he doesn't give much care, or he didn't give much care. So if we are going to comment, we are supposed to say, it was said, or the sentence was said by Mr. Stryver to whom? To Mr. Lorry, when he knew that Lucy rejected him as a husband. Mr. Stryver thought that Lucy was a stupid girl not to accept his offer. For him, being a successful lawyer, a rich man, and very famous, these were all the elements that would make any woman or any girl accept him as a husband. Now this one is very important. I would do anything for you and for those that you love. Definitely, this sentence, at the beginning, I have to say that the sentence symbolizes a sacrifice. Who was the one who wanted to sacrifice everything he had just to make Lucy happy? Guess who? Not Charles Darnay, but it was Sydney Carton. Sydney Carton was the hidden lover for Lucy. He really loved her, but he thought that he, as a very good person, he wouldn't have a chance of success with Lucy. That's why he stepped away and he didn't think about proposing her. When she was about to get married, when she was a wife to Charles Darnay, he told her that. Why did he really tell her that? Because he wanted her to know how much he loved her. He did not have any intentions to be anything to her but the hidden lover. So he told her that he would sacrifice his life for her or even for anyone whom she had loved. Maybe we didn't get to this point in our reading, but I think I should tell you that Charles Darnay would be about to be hanged in France because he was one of the Evermond family. The only thing that Sydney Carton would be able to do is to replace, because there is a great resemblance. They were identically typical. So he thought that being killed or being hanged instead of Charles Darnay and saving Charles Darnay's life in order to live with Lucy for the rest of his life happy, that was the only thing that he could do. So he sacrificed, really, he did what he said. Okay, he sacrificed his life for the only person that Lucy had loved, who was Charles Darnay. All right. We'll take one from here. He will get his reward if he is here. Who do you think said this sentence? The sentence was really said by Madame Defarge. And Madame Defarge was discussing, if you remember, the revenge issue. They were talking at the time. The spy came and he started talking about Dr. Manette's daughter being married to one of the Evermond family. Here, when they knew that Lucy is about to get married to Charles Darnay, Dr. Manette was very angry, and he wished if Charles Darnay was not here at the time of the revolution. But she told him that even if he was there, or even if he were there, he would get what he deserved. This is what the whole sentence referred to. So it was said by Madame Defarge to Monsieur Defarge in the wine shop after they knew that Charles Darnay was about to marry Lucy, the daughter of Dr. Manette. Charles Darnay, as one of the Evermond family, was an enemy to both Madame and Monsieur Defarge. That's why they wanted to kill him if he was in France at that time. Now let's move to a quick look to the Solitary Reaper, the poetry. Of course, the poetry, I also did not share any questions or answers about this poem because I know that we had the sheet that has most of the answers that we need. To start with, the Solitary Reaper is written by William Wordsworth, and to try to focus here, because the Solitary Reaper is one that focuses on nature, as well as William Wordsworth, the same. So we have two poems with the same poet. It's the same poet, William Wordsworth. Okay, this is one thing common between two of them. Now, behold her single in the field, her. So at the beginning, so that I can give you a total commentary on the poem was about a girl, a beautiful girl, who was reaping in the fields, and she was singing at the same time. A man passed by this lady and he heard his voice while she was singing. He liked her voice and he liked the song, although he didn't understand what exactly she was singing about. He was confused about whether she was thinking about the weary bands, or she was singing about bad days. Maybe she was singing about something he didn't understand. Here I will try to read this part. Now Nightingale did ever chant more welcome notes to weary hands of travelers in some shady hunt among Arabian sands. A voice so thrilling near was heard in springtime from the cuckoo bird, breaking the silence of the seas among the furthest Hebrides. Will no one tell me what she sings? Here is the part when the poet started being confused about what she was singing. Perhaps the plaintive numbers flow, or old unhappy far off things and battles long ago, or is it some more humble lay, familiar matter of today? So this is the stanza in which the poet was unsure or uncertain about what the lady was singing. He didn't know if she was singing about unhappy days, or about days from the past, or about battles in the past. He did not or he was not absolutely certain about what she was singing. Some natural sorrow, loss or pain that has been and may be again, whatever the theme the maiden sang, as if her song could have no ending. I saw her singing at her work. We still have more words. By the end of the poem, William Wordsworth is trying to tell us that the person who passed by the lady who was reaping and singing at the same time started climbing up the mountain, and her voice started to get faded. So by the end of the mountain, when he reached up to his destination, her song was not there anymore, but still her voice, as well as the nice words that she was singing, were still kept in his heart, right? So if we went back again and started talking about the rhyme scheme here, we have the word filled, lass, herself, pass, again and strain, profound and sound, chaunt and hand, haunt and sand, herd and bird, seas, Hebrides, sings, flow, things ago, lay, day, or pain, again, sang, ending, and work. The rhyming scheme here follows the same pattern if we paid attention to that. So don't get confused. In this Old English, we don't say A, B, C, and then we move on. We find the one stanza, and then we think that, that the rhyming scheme could be A, B, C, D, for example. This goes for the second stanza as well. So we don't say A, B, C, D, and then move on to E, F, G, and so on. So the first stanza follows the same rhyme scheme as the second one. A, B, C, D, for example. I'm just giving you an example because I don't want you, if you ask it about the rhyme scheme of the whole poem, don't go through giving the whole letters of English in order to give me the rhyme scheme of the poem. That would be definitely wrong. If I want to find any figure of speech in these lines, I would say that we have here, no nightingale did ever chaunt. Of course, right here we have some personification. So the nightingale is a bird, as well as the cuckoo bird, by the way. The nightingale is a bird, and the word chaunt means sing. So in this line, the poem or the poet is trying to compare between a person, the nightingale as a bird, to a person who can sing. So he personifies the nightingale as a person who can sing. Something else that I don't want you to focus on is using Old English. I mean this apostrophe, this comma and this apostrophe in near This is what we call Old English, and it's one of the most dominant figures of speech, but we do not focus on it. So don't mention it in your exam if he asks you about any figure of speech of that kind. Now, of travelers, or welcome notes to weary bands of travelers in some shady hunt among Arabian Nights. Among Arabian Nights. This is very obvious that we have here so we can say that we have alliteration as a figure of speech. If we want to explain it, we would say that the poet repeated the letter or the sound A in the same line in order to give music to the lines. I'm running out of time, so I will have to go through Composed Upon Westminster Bridge, also one of the best poems ever written by William Wordsworth, and it definitely does not mainly talk about nature, but it makes a mixture between nature or God-made nature and man-made nature. Right here, he's talking mainly about the city of London. In the very early morning, it happened that the poet was going through Westminster Bridge, and he saw the city of London before sunrises. When he saw that view of the city being so quiet, having no sound, no machines are working, no people are going and coming back, with the first sign of the sun coming up, he started to feel how beautiful the city was at that time. So he composed these lines. Earth has not anything to show more fair, dull would he be of soul who could pass by. A sight so touching in its majesty, the city now doth like a garment wear, the beauty of the morning silent bear. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie upon open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in this first splendor, valley, rock, or hell. Near so I never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet well. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all the mighty heart is lying still. So if we are talking about what mainly, if I give you a question, what mainly was the poet talking about in the lines? So he's talking about the city of London when during the sunset, that's during the sunrise, so or in the very early morning. Here we can say that he's talking about the person who would look at London at that time wouldn't feel the beauty of the view while he was on the bridge. He is saying that any person who would pass by this view and wouldn't feel it, it would be dull of him. And dull here means like stupid. So any person who wouldn't feel the beauty of the view would be so stupid, saying that the view of the city of London at that time is so touching. A sight means a view, so touching in its majesty. The city now doth like a garment wear. What does the city do? The city wears, and cities do not wear clothes, by the way. Like a garment, and a garment is something that people wear, so it's like a cloak or something like that. The beauty of the morning silent bear. So he is telling us that the city is wearing something. What is the city wearing? The city is wearing the beauty of the morning. So we have so many figures of speech in these lines. Silent bear, ships, towers, domes, theatre, and temples lie open onto the field and to the sky. So he's telling us that all the features of the city, including the ships, the towers, the domes, that he's looking at, that he was looking at, what did these features do? They were opened into the fields and to the sky. So he was just trying to give details about the view in front of him while he was looking at the city of London, while he was on the Westminster Bridge. all bright and glittering and blah blah blah. All these lines refer to still the beauty of the city. And he is telling us in these lines that the city can never be more beautiful, or could never be more beautiful, unless with the first view of the sun. Splendor here means the first sight of the morning, or the sun in the very early morning. Splendor refers to the first sight of the sun in the very early morning. Valley, rocks, or hill, and so I felt calm salute. So the one thing that he is focusing on also during or while he was looking at the city is how silent the city was. No one was around, everyone was sleeping. So he tried to tell us that even the buildings of the city were asleep. So he's trying to give them the characteristic of a person, as if the buildings were people who were sleeping or so calm. Okay, now in this part, that's the line here. The river glideth, and the glides means like flows or moves freely at his own sweet well. Dear God, here comes the point when he starts mending between man-made, and in all these lines he was describing man-made beauty, while in the last three lines he started to talk about God-made nature, or God-made beauty. So here when he said, dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. The word mighty heart refers to something, or it symbolizes something. It does not mean the heart of a person, no. It refers to the heart of the city of London. Number one, cities do not have hearts. So here we can find that this is a kind of personification. But what is more is that the mighty heart does not refer that the city has a heart. No. He wants to say that the mighty heart refers to the machines and the industrial period of time that London lived at that time. So the mighty heart refers to the factories, the sound of factories and the sound of machines in the city of London, telling us that this mighty heart, the sound of the factory and the machine, was still lying, like it was still asleep. You got it? So the mighty heart refers to the factories, or symbolizes the factories and the machines that used to work in London at that time. I will try to quickly refer to one or two figures of speech here in the lines. About the figure of speech in this line: a sight so touching in its majesty, the city now doth like a garment wear, the beauty of the morning. At the beginning, here we have a personification in the word the city now wear. This is definitely a personification in which he personifies the city as a person who can wear clothes. And the word doth, by the way, means does. It does not mean anything else. So doth here means does. Like a garment, okay? The beauty of the morning. So what is the garment, as a matter of fact, that the city is wearing? The garment that the city is wearing is the beauty of the morning. So here we have a metaphor, and the metaphor is the words that, or where the poet is trying to compare between the beauty of the morning and a beautiful garment for a woman or for a person to wear. Right here, the river glideth at his own sweet well. Also one of the most dominant figures of speech, which is also personification, because we know that rivers, yes, rivers glow, but rivers do not have well. And the word well refers to your determination, like what you wish for. And rivers are not humans to wish. So here we have another personification in which the poet is trying to personify the river as a person who has his own well. The very houses seem asleep. Still, we are working or going through another personification in which the poet tried to personify the houses as a person who seems asleep or who could sleep. I hope this quick revision would help you. I'm running out of time, so I'm hoping you the best for the exams. Good luck and goodbye.